Hi viewers, good afternoon, welcome back again. Today we shall be looking at the distributive property. The distributive property. Let's start with a simple example. If you have something like 5 into 3 minus 1, if you are asked to solve this, how would you solve this? Now, let's say you know the PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That is parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. This is probably what you will use. This is arithmetic. Arithmetic is the branch of mathematics that deals with numbers. Now, you're dealing with arithmetic. You can easily use this rule, and your first rule will be 3 minus 1, which is 2, because this is the parenthesis. You do the parenthesis, and then 5 times 2 will give you 10. Now, when we want to apply this to algebra, when we start using variables, then we have to look beyond this rule. We have to look at what we call the distributive property. What does the distributive property tell us? Here in this expression, we want to distribute 5. The outer element that is not within the parenthesis is what we are going to distribute. So we want to distribute 5 to 3, and then we keep the sign, which is the negative sign. Then we also distribute 5 to 1. Let me repeat. We have to distribute 5 to 3. We bring down the negative, and then we distribute 5 to 1. So this will be 5 times 3 minus 5 times 1. So that will give us 5 times 3 is what? 15. Minus 5 times 1 is 1? 5. 15 minus 5 still gives us 10. Now we have just done this with numbers. This first one is using the rule PEMDAS, the order of expression, order of operation. Order of operation is what you use to do this. But this second one, you use the distributive property to do it. Distributive property. In this case, you distribute 5 to 3. You bring down the negative sign, then you distribute 5 to 1. And that will give you the same result. When we come to variables, this is what we will be using, the distributive property. Now, before you continue with this video segment, I will suggest that you go back and view the video segment on variables, adding and subtracting variables, because it is important. You also have to view multiplying constants and variables, the video segment on that. It is also important before you continue. Now let's look at some examples. I will try to teach every case. I'm going to try to look at all the different situations of distributive property. So let's start with the first one. If I have A into B plus C, here I will distribute A to B, then I bring down the positive operation, which is plus sign, then I'll distribute A to C. So this will be A times B, bring down the plus, A times C. A times B will give you what? AB plus A times C will give you what? AC. And this will be your answer. If I were to illustrate this as a diagram, this is what it will be. The A will go to B, and it will give A times B. And then you bring down this operation, which is a positive sign. And then the next one, this A will go to C, and it will give you A times C. And that will be AB plus AC. So A to B, multiply it, AB, bring down the sign, then A to C, AC, multiply it. So if you were to do 3 into 4B plus 5, each situation I do, I want to give you an example of that situation. So this will be, who are we distributing? 3. We are distributing it to who? How many people? To 2 people. To 4B, then bring down the sign, then to 5. So this will be 3 times 4B plus 3 times 5. 3 times 4B will give you 12B plus 3 times 5 will give you 15. And that becomes your answer. Let's do number 2, second case. If I have A, B minus C, the same thing applies here. It's going to give me A times B minus A times C. And that gives me AB minus AC. If I wanted to do an example of this case, 3 into 4B minus 5. This will give me 3 times 4B. You bring down the operation minus 3 times 5. And that gives you 12B minus 15. Third case. If I have A into negative B plus C, in this case this is A into negative B plus C, who am I distributing? A to how many people? To 2 people, to negative B and to C. So this will be A times negative B, then I bring down this sign, always bring down the middle sign, plus A times C. So this will be negative AB plus AC. If I have example 3 into negative 4B plus 5, this will be 3 times negative 4B, you bring down the sign here, plus 3 times 5. And that will give you negative 12B plus 15. Let's go to the fourth case. The fourth case will be A into negative B minus C. So I distribute A to negative B, I bring down the sign here, and I distribute A to C. Now, a lot of students get confused when it comes to negatives. Look at the rule, look at the way you do it. This is what you're distributing A. Distribute it to negative B, then bring down the sign, bring down this sign, and then distribute A to C. Some students will go and distribute A to negative B, bring down the sign, and then distribute A to negative C. That is wrong. That will give you a wrong answer. And you can always check this. When you are dealing with distributive property, try and check it with integers and see whether you're correct. If you're correct, you know it worked. Okay? So this is A times negative B minus A times C, which is now negative AB minus AC. And if we do an example of this, 3 into negative 4B minus 5, this will be 3 times negative 4B minus 3 times 5. And that will give you negative 12B minus 15. If you want to, when you are doing distributive property, if you want to check whether you're correct, you can simply use integers to do it. For instance, if I have something like 5 into negative 3, negative 1. If you use PEMDAS to do this, if you use PEMDAS, please excuse my dear, that's if you use the order of operations, no? Order of operations to do it. This will be 5 times negative 4, and this is negative 20. But if you use the distributive property, you want to make sure whether this is correct. As a check, you want to see whether you actually got it correct. You can do 5 into negative 3, negative 1, 5 times negative 3 minus 5 times 1. And that will give you negative 15, negative 5. You owe 15, you owe 5, and that is negative 20, which tells you you're in order. Now, this is the 4th case. Let's go to the 5th case. In the 5th case, we have negative A into B plus C. In this case, you are distributing negative A. All the 4 cases we looked at, you distributed only A. In this case, you are distributing negative A to how many people? To 2 people, to B and to C. So this will be negative A times B plus negative A times C. And that will give you negative AB, because negative A times B is negative AB, plus negative A times C is negative AC. And then plus minus. Remember the rules of addition and subtraction. When you see 2 signs together, you make it 1 sign. You can go back and view that video segment. So this will give you negative AB minus AC, or negative AC. Now, some students get stuck when it comes here. You don't. Just change the 2 signs to 1 sign, and you're correct. If you still have to, you can do it with the integers, and you will still get the same answer. Now, if we do an example here, negative 3 into 4b plus 5. This will give us negative 3 times 4b plus, you bring down the sign. When you distribute, you bring down the sign, then negative 3 times 5. Remember, you are distributing negative 3 to how many people? To 4b and to 5. So you use negative 3, distribute to 4b, then bring down this sign, positive sign, plus sign, bring it down, then use negative 3 and distribute to 5. Do it step by step, and you will not get into errors. So this will be negative 12b plus negative 15, and that gives you negative 12b, negative 15, or negative 12b minus 15. That's the 5th case. The 6th case, negative A into B minus C. Now, what are you distributing? Negative A. To how many people? To B and to C. But listen, you have to bring down this sign always. So this is negative A times B minus negative A times C, because you are distributing negative A. Students, please pay attention to this particular question, because a lot of students, since I've been teaching, a lot of students find it difficult doing this kind. So you are distributing negative A to B, which is negative A times B. Then make sure you bring down the sign. This is the sign here, this arrow. Bring down the negative sign, then you distribute negative A to C. Some students will come and skip 1 negative. So this will now be negative AB. You still keep your sign, you still bring it down, minus negative A times C, negative AC. I'm not trying to rush. Some students will rush and just write negative AB plus AC. I understand that, and you're correct, but I like doing it step by step. So this will be negative AB plus AC. Now if you have negative 3, 4b minus 5, this will give you negative 3 times 4b minus negative 3 times 5. And that will give you negative 12b minus negative 15. And that will give you negative 12b plus 15. That is the case 6. Let's go to the 7th situation. Case 7. Like I said, I want to expose you to the different cases you may encounter so that it won't be difficult for you. Number 7, if we have negative A, negative B plus C. In this case, you are distributing negative A to how many people? 2 people. To negative B and to C. So this will give us negative A times negative B plus, you bring down the sign here, negative A times C. Negative A times negative B is AB, because negative times negative gives you a positive. Then plus negative A times C gives you negative AC. And then when you see 2 signs close together, you make it 1 sign. So this is AB minus AC. And in example, if we have negative 3, negative 4b plus 5, that will give us negative 3 times negative 4b plus negative 3 times 5. And that will give us 12b plus negative 15. And that will give us 12b minus 15. The last scenario, the 8th case, negative A into negative B minus C. This is another scenario that students are kind of confused about it, and sometimes they mess up in it. But it is easy. You still follow the same principle. You distribute negative A to negative B, you bring down the negative sign, and then you distribute negative A to C. Simple. So negative A times negative B, then I bring down this sign, minus negative A times C. Some students make the mistake of putting another negative C here. Some students do that, but you don't do that. Distribute negative A to negative B, then bring down this sign. This sign is minus or negative. If you watch my other earlier video segments, there is no difference between negative and minus. There is no difference. And then what you have left here is C. So you distribute negative A to C. So this negative A times negative B is AB. Then minus negative A times C is negative AC. And this will give you AB plus AC. You see 2 signs, you make it 1 sign. And that gives you a positive. So if we have negative 3 into negative 4b minus 5, this will give us negative 3 times negative 4b minus negative 3 times 5. And that will give us 12b minus negative 15. And that will give us 12b plus 15. This is our 8 scenarios that we can have in distributive property. Any other question comes using any of these 8 scenarios, I bet you. But you can have as many things to be distributed to. Okay, you can have as many things to be distributed to. Now, before I go into solving some other problems, I would like you, some of you will ask, what if you have negative B plus C? If you have this kind of situation, what is here? Like if you view, I would suggest that you view the video segment on variables, like I mentioned earlier. If you have something like this, this means the same thing as negative 1, B plus C. That is what it means. It is the same thing. So you can say you are distributing negative 1 to B, you bring down the sign, and then you distribute negative 1 to C. So this is negative 1 times b plus negative 1 times c. That is the same thing. Negative 1 times b means negative b plus negative 1 times c gives you negative c. Then you have two signs together, you make it one sign. This is negative b, negative c. That is it. Just like when you have negative 3 plus 4. Of course, that gives you negative 7. If you wanted to do order of operations, it's negative 7. But if you wanted to use the distributive property, it will be negative 1 times into 3 plus 4. Then it will be negative 1 times 3 plus negative 1 times 4. Negative 1 times 3 gives you negative 3 plus negative 1 times 4 gives you negative 4. And that will give you negative 3, negative 4. And that will give you negative 7. The same thing. So I will do some series of examples and then you can do the rest. Okay? Let's start with example 1. Negative 3t plus 4. So this will give us negative 3 times t plus negative 3 times 4. And that gives us negative 3t plus negative 12. This is negative 3t minus 12. And that's the answer. Now, some of you might see it to the other side. Like, if you have negative 3, 4 minus t. Let's do this as example 2. This will give you negative 3 times 4 is the same thing. Whether the variable is to the left here or to the right, it doesn't matter. You just follow the distribution, the distributive property. Negative 3 times 4 minus negative 3 times t. And that gives you negative 12 minus negative 3t. And that gives you negative 12 plus 3t. Or some people will write it 3t minus 12. Whichever way. Some textbooks will prefer to write it this way because we don't want a negative to lead. We don't want the negative to be in front. So some textbooks will prefer to write it 3t minus 12. Okay, that's the second example. Let's do more examples. Example 3. If we have 2 into negative x minus 1 plus 5. If you have this kind, that's fine. We will apply both the order of operations and also the distributive property in order to do this. So let's do this first. Let's do the inner parenthesis. Here we have two parentheses, the inner and the outer. Let's start working with the inner parenthesis. So we see here that we will distribute this using distributive property. This is the same thing as saying negative 1, x minus 1 plus 5. And this, the next step, distribute this. This is negative 1 times x. Then bring down the minus, negative 1 times 1. Then plus 5. Then you bring down the next one. Negative 1 times x is negative x. Minus. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Then plus 5. You don't add it now, no. Then the next step, you have negative x plus 1 plus 5. Now you now have negative x plus 1 plus 5. So you can go ahead and add the constants. So this will give you 2 into negative x plus 6. And then you have to distribute again. You see, with this question, we have distributed 2 times. So when you have 2 into negative x plus 6, you now distribute 2 into negative x and then 2 to 6. This gives you 2 times negative x plus 2 times 6. And that gives you negative 2x plus 12. So this should not scare you. You just do it one at a time. Start with the inner parenthesis, distribute, then add, then distribute again. Some questions are like that, where you have to distribute 2 times. In the video segment on linear equations, we will do more problems like this. The next one, number 4. Distribute negative 6k minus 4k plus 8. We still start with the inner one. Okay, negative 6k minus 1, 4k plus 8. So here, in this case, what you may do here, you don't want to run into problems. There are two ways you can do this. You can either take this out, use negative 1 and distribute this. Or what I would advise is, put a parenthesis here. When you put a parenthesis here, it gives you this. When you put a parenthesis, you know that the negative will change any sign that is here. When you have this 1 times 4k plus 1 times 8, when you open up the parentheses, you will realize that the negative will change the positive here and also the positive here. So this will give us 6k minus 4k minus 8. Or another thing you can do is you come here, this is negative 1 into 4k plus 8, and you just distribute it negative 1 times 4k plus negative 1 times 8. So this is negative 4k plus negative 8, and that is negative 4k minus 8. What we have here, negative 4k minus 8. So this will now give us negative 6k minus 4k is 2k minus 8. And then the same thing happens here. Negative 1, this means negative 1 into 2k minus 8. And that will give you negative 1 times 2k minus negative 1 times 8. And that will give you negative 2k minus negative 8. And that will give you negative 2k plus 8. And that's the answer. Next example, number 5. 9 plus 6k plus 3. Already 1 is here already. So you can say 9 plus 1 into 6k plus 3, which is 9 plus 1 times 6k plus 1 times 3. So this is 9 plus 6k plus 3. And that will give you 6k plus 9 plus 3. And that will give you 6k plus 12. Some people might say that I am making it, I'm having a lot of steps. Having a lot of steps is better than just having 2 steps and rushing and making a simple mistake. I mean, a simple mistake which could cost you marks or points. It's better you do it step by step. That's the way I approach it. I can easily look at this and say the answer, but this video segment is mainly for students who could not grasp it immediately. So when they look at it, they see the steps and they can understand. Number 6, negative 3p minus 2p plus 5. The same thing goes here. This is negative 3p. Of course, this will change. Of course, you know that this is negative 1. I did an example like that earlier on. So this is negative 2p, negative 5. And this gives you negative 3p minus 2p is what? P minus 5. And of course, I did an example like this. This means negative 1. This will give you negative p plus 5. Or you can say 5 minus p. You can say 5 minus p. You've got to do a lot of examples for you to understand this. Practice. Practice makes perfect. When you practice, you get it. Number 7. If we have negative 4, 2j minus 4 minus 3j. Here, I also start with the inner parenthesis. This is 4 times 2j minus 4 times 4 minus 3j. So this is negative 8j minus 16 minus 3j. Negative 8j minus 3j minus 16. Negative 5j minus 16. Distribute again, it will give you negative 5j plus 16. Or 16 minus 5j. Hey viewers, for the examples 8 and example 9, I've done it over again. Here, you distribute, like this is negative 1. We have done an example like this initially. So negative 1 times 3m is 3m, is negative 3m, I'm sorry. Negative 1 times 3m is negative 3m, then plus negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. And when you, the two signs, you make it one sign, it will be negative 3m minus 2. And that will give you 8 minus 2 minus 3m. And then that will give you 6 minus 3m. And then 9. The difference is that a 9, instead of having a positive here, you have a negative here, but you still do it the same way. 8 minus 3m plus 2, and 8 plus 2 minus 3m, 10 minus 3m. So, I think I have covered all the scenarios of distributive property. If you still have questions about any specific one, please feel free to make your comments ask me questions on the website or make your comments on the YouTube. Thank you so much for happy viewing, and you have a nice day. Alright, bye.